Hey everybody, Ben for the Better Podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl 2025 Team Guides. We're going through every team in Blood Bowl Season 3. We're having a look at the changes, we're having a look at the players, and we're having a look at what you could run if you went to the shops and bought a box. And today, I can't believe this is actually the last team I'm doing, because I think it was potentially the #1 team that I was excited about in this edition of Blood Bowl. Yes, there's gutter runners. Yes, there's movement 8 Skaven blitzers. This team got all the upgrades that the Skaven team got, with literally none of the downside. It's Underworld. Okay, so the Underworld team. Oh no, where's my little graphic gone? There we go. Right, Underworld. Right, Underworld. It's an interesting one. The actual formation of the Underworld team has not changed, but some of the stuff that's happened to this edition of Blood Bowl has benefited them greatly. But we'll talk about that when we look at the roster. So these guys are still 70k rerolls. They are tier 1. They are very much tier 1. These guys and OWA are looking mighty fine in this edition. And you know what? Mixed teams. Mixed teams are where it's at as far as I'm concerned for Blood Bowl. I think it's just the best way to play. So actually, the fact we've got 2 mixed teams, I think, are 2 of the best ones in this edition of Blood Bowl. I'm very happy with that. Okay, so they've got Underworld Challenge, which is going to affect which star players they can take, which inducements they can take, and they've got a pretty decent bag, to be honest, but we'll go through that in more detail when we look at starting rosters and stuff like that. This is not going to be a rely on star player heavy team. There's definitely some stuff you can do to do that, but actually this roster comes ready to play Blood Bowl all by itself, so it's pretty cool in that way. They've also got bribery and corruption, so that means they get cheap bribes. They can take up to 6 of them, and you get to re-roll a 1. The first one, when it comes to arguing the call. Now, this roster comes with nobody that is secret weapons. So as far as bribes, they're going to be there to help you foul, to help keep your foulers on the pitch, and to help keep any secret weapons that you induce kicking around. So it's not the primary thing you need to worry about, which is pretty cool. Okay, so on to the roster. So these guys, 0 to 16, Goblin linemen. Now these are your standard goblins, however they get mutation access on a primary, which is fantastic. I'm going to gush about these goblins pretty soon. They're not as good at passing as the orc goblins are, which is very strange. Orc goblins have passing 3+, every other goblin in the game has passing 4+. But dude, these goblins are just 3 SPP away from a random mutation, and there's a ton of cool stuff you can take to make a goblin really beneficial. Right, they've also got 0 to 16 snotling linemen. Now, there's no swarming for this roster, and these snotlings have insignificant. Now, this is not insignificant, but the skill is insignificant, but it's not insignificant for building the roster because you have to buy the player, and you cannot have more snotlings than you have other players on your roster. So you have to fill out. The idea is that rule is in there on some cheap players to stop you from just building out your roster with basically 0 cost dudes to maximize your inducements. If you want to take snotlings, you're going to have to take other stuff too. However, on this roster, you get access to 6 Skaven players. And I can't see you taking a huge amount less than 6 Skaven players because they are pretty cool. I can see you dropping a couple of linemen maybe just to go goblin heavy, absolutely. But those strength 3, movement 7 pieces are actually really integral to this roster. And as far as the rest of the roster goes, they're actually pretty tough. So even though the snotlings have insignificant, they're there just to kind of pad out your roster a little bit, maybe feed to the rat ogre. There's not going to be any swarming, so you can't put off any shenanigans like that for these guys. Right, then you get 0 to 3 Skaven line rats, and they are actually listed as linemen here, so that's quite useful. 0 to 3 of them, they are Skaven linemen, and very much alongside the goblins and the snotlings, they get mutation access on a general. In fact, everything in this roster gets mutation access on a primary. So 3 SPPs for anybody, including your big guys, you're rolling random mutations. 6 SPPs, you are picking a mutation for these guys, which gives you massive amounts of flexibility. It's a very, very quick, very cheap way to almost stat up some of your players here if you're leaning into the edge side of it. So pretty tasty. You get 0 to 1 Skaven thrower, who may not be the best thrower in the game, but this Skaven thrower is top 2, I think. I think this is the best thrower that isn't the vampire thrower. he's got a reasonable suite of stuff to throw it to as well. I think this Skaven thrower is positioned beautifully well and has that mutation access as well, which is pretty useful if you want to go for the extra hands to get you the 2++ pickup, which can be quite cool. He's already starting with passing 2+ anyway, so you don't necessarily need to go the accurate route to kind of brew him up to be a super thrower. Oh, it is tempting though, isn't it? Right, then you get the Skaven Blitzer. Now, this is where it gets really good for the Underworld roster. Yes, they had a Skaven Blitzer before, but now this is the new improved Skaven Blitzer. The Skaven roster lost 2 Gutter Runners. And as part of compensation, their Blitzers now became Movement 8 and have Strip Ball. I was going to say tackle. They don't have tackle. They probably should have tackle, but they don't. They've got Strip Ball. So Underworld just get that buff as well. So the Skaven Blitzer here is a Movement 8 Strength 3-piece who already has block and just gets free rolled Strip Ball. So every now and again, if you are able to land a 1 or 2 die hit on the ball carrier with the Skaven Blitzer, that ball is probably coming out, which is fantastic. Then you've got the aforementioned Gutter Runner, who is still an absolute beast at Movement 9 and Edge 2+. He's Strength 2, he's Armor 8+, so he's a bit vulnerable, but he does come with Dodge. And now he's got Stab 2, which is going to be pretty cool every now and again. Definitely not a major game plan. If your Gutter Runner is being based by someone, it's going to be risky. But what it does do is it gives you the opportunity with a high movement, high edge piece to take a chance to break armor on a target. So think about blodgers, think about war dancers, stuff like that. Historically, a Gutter Runner is going to be able to get there, but then he's going to be making a 2-die up block, a 2-die up blitz on the ball carrier, which is never really brilliant. What this changes that into is if your Gutter Runner can get to a target, let's just take a War Dancer here, for example, who starts with Blodge, which makes them pretty tough to beat down with a 2-die negative. He can just run up to them and try and break the armor. Now, it's an 8+ armor roll for most of your targets, which is, I think, a 44% chance of working out. And you don't get to team reroll it, but that's probably better odds than a vanilla skill going up against a blodger, right? You've got that 2 in 6 on both dice there to either both down yourself or skull yourself without any skill. So it's quite likely. I think the fact that there's no downside of stab here other than you're going to be basing the ball carrier, it's just a great option. And where you've got a Gutter Runner on this Underworld roster, you kind of, it just becomes a bit more of a toolkit piece, which is wicked, but he does everything else he already did brilliantly. And with mutation access on a general, this guy can become pseudo Edge 1+ for dodging, or all sorts of nonsense. Man, I love this roster. Oh yeah, and you get a big guy too. So you get a choice of 2 big guys. You can only take the one. So you can either take the Troll or the Rat Ogre. And look, that's why we're going to go and do a starting rosters video soon, because there's definitely upside to both of these guys. The Troll is cheaper and more resilient. The Roger is more violent and a bit more expensive. You get to choose. So there's going to be a bit of plotting out with this roster, I think, when you kind of think about what you want it to do. But the fact that both these lads have got mutation access on a primary skill, they do both have loner, so that's a downside in this roster. But it does mean that actually if you want a Tentacles Troll or a Claws Mighty Blow Rat Ogre, you can do it very quickly. Okay, so let's dive into the players on this roster, and we're going to start with ultimately the most important player, the most important piece here, which is the Goblin Lineman. Now, I love Goblins. They are a little bit underrated, but I think they're wicked. They are just very useful players. Movement 6 is fine. Strength 2 is a little vulnerable. Sure, it's not very strong. You're not going to make good blocks, but that's okay. Edge 3+, passing 4+ armor. Got to move my kind of monster here because I can't see my screen. Armor 8+ is standard Goblin territory. And they come with dodge, right stuff, and stunty for 40k. Now, there's 2 things you want to kind of consider with goblins. One is that goblins are already very dodgy. They're very shifty, all right? Movement 6 is not the fastest, except when you're going straight through tackle zones, because you've got dodge and stunty, which means you are basically edge 3+ with a reroll to make any dodge anywhere ever, unless there's prehensile tail. So the goblins can go pretty fast in a straight line when you need them to. It's going to let you down. Sometimes you're going to roll a 2 into another 2, and that goblin is literally going to die. But it's heroic up to that. And remember, the goblins on this roster are your backup plan, which makes it so much more advantageous. Now, the other cool thing about this is you've got agility on a primary. you've got Devious on a primary, and you've got Mutation on a primary. Now, if you watched the Renegade video the other day, you'll know that there's nothing better than a two-headed goblin. I was wrong. There is something much better than two-headed goblin. It is a bunch of two-headed goblins. Now, there's some cool stuff you can do with the goblins here. So obviously, two heads gives you +1 to dodging forever, ever, which is going to take you down to edge 2+ with a reroll from dodge and stunty, ignoring all the negatives. So a two-headed goblin is just 2++ everywhere. You can take extra arms to give you +1 to pick up and receive the ball. You can take big hand to ignore all tackle zones and all modifiers around to pick up the ball. Those are just the really basic things that you can go. Those are really solid starting points. Now, if you want to go the faster route, you can try some edge skills. You can take a bit of sure feet or sprint. Movement 6 with 2 rushes is actually pretty fast anyway when you're throwing them in a straight line. Jump up is not bad if you want to have one of your goblins become your paratrooper. And by paratrooper, I mean you can kind of, on defense, chuck a goblin into the backfield and just have him harangue the ball carrier. Force your opponent to roll dice. Force your opponent to take activations in their own backfield to slow their offense, to give you more numbers on the line. Now, this roster doesn't massively have the muscle to make the most of that, but it's very disruptive. And if you've got a cheeky goblin in the backfield and the ball tends to drop, there is a 3+ chance probably of you being able to grab that ball. Maybe some modifiers, absolutely, but I don't know. Those are pretty good odds to just absolutely harangue your opponent in the backfield. So we talked about mutations. Yeah, they get devious skills as well, so you can take Dirty Player and Lone Fowler really easily with your Goblin Lineman. And I think this is one of the really cool things about this roster is you get a Goblin who's got 2 heads and is the dodgy guy. You've got a Goblin who is the Fowly guy. You've got a Goblin who is the jump-up guy who becomes your Paratrooper. And that's 3 Goblins. That's wicked. And actually, all of those things can happen at the low cost of 6 SPPs if you want to choose them. Or you can risk a random, and at 3 SPP, so that is a touchdown for a goblin, you can go, cool, let's just roll up 2 mutations and pick the best one. Okay, cool, let's roll up 2 devious skills and pick the best one. Devious, you got Lone Fowler, you got Dirty Player. Fantastic. Immediately useful skills. Agility, sure feet, sprint, jump up. Cool. Already like cooking up some fun stuff. Catch can be quite useful as well. Mutations, 2 heads, extra arms, foul appearance. There's a bunch of cool stuff. Big hand. There's some cool stuff there. So actually, goblins are cheap. They are almost disposable. And actually, at 3 SPP, you can kind of give that skill roulette. Secondary access, yeah, you've got that at 10 SPP, which isn't too bad. Now, I am on record as lamenting the loss of a random secondary skill in this edition. The fact that's gone is a bit of a shame. However, 10 SPPs is much cheaper, so really that's 2 touchdowns and an MVP. Quite a bit for a goblin, but actually pretty achievable in the grand scheme of things. So you can actually just brew up a block goblin or a wrestle goblin that just pumps in somewhere and has a go at dropping somebody down. You can do some other shenanigans, I suppose, but actually that's probably as good as it's going to get. Stat up on a goblin, yeah, it could be entertaining. It's a long way to go, but yeah, definitely quite entertaining. I think maybe you take a 2-heads guy and a jump-up guy and a Dirty Player guy, and then the other guy, yeah, why not? Wait and see if you can roll 14 SPP and brew up a Strength 3 goblin or an Edge 2+ goblin or a Movement 7 goblin. It's not the best, but it's going to be quite fun. And talking about things that are not the best but are quite fun, we've got 0 to 60, no, 0 to 60, no, that would be messy. 0 to 6 Snotling Linemen. These are significantly worse goblins, but they have one advantage. So movement 5, slower, strength 1, weaker, edge 3+ the same, passing 4+ the same, armor 6+ worse than almost everybody. Yeah, it is worse than everybody. 15k though makes them really cheap. So 2 advantages actually for Snotlings. One is that they are really cheap. So if you're starting off and your 11th player needs to be a Snotling, you can do that and save yourself 25k to spend on something else. If you want to take a couple of goblins, you can save quite a lot of money and do some other stuff. The other thing you can do is drop a goblin and potentially take 2 or 3 Snotlings. You can pad out your roster, you can just feed people to the roger. So that's why we're going to do a starting roster video for this, because there may be some circumstances where your 11th player, who would normally be a goblin, actually becomes 3 Snotlings instead. It's weaker, but it gives you a little bit of bench, a little bit of opportunity to feed someone to an ogre, and a little bit of opportunity to put the boot in. And also, they're right stuff as well, so you can throw them. Now, the other benefit to the Snotling is where the goblin is movement 6 and can dodge around on a 3+ with a reroll. The Snotling is only movement 5, but dodges around on a 2+ with a reroll because they've got Titchy. So actually, a little Snotling as the reserve backup plan as a ball carrier. As long as you don't roll ones, this guy can just wander 7 squares with a couple of rushes in any direction as long as you don't roll a 1. It can be really beneficial. And I mean, Snotlings are great. They're also really useful as roadblocks, okay? Dodge, even though they're strength 1, it can keep them alive. And with sidestep, you can really lead opponents around. So having a couple of Snotlings available if you happen to come against a frenzy player can be really funny. In fact, the Snotling roster versus Khorne is brutal. In fact, you know, Snotlings and Noblars are very much the same, right? So Ogres and Snotlings versus Khorne, all that frenzy trapping, all that frenzy bait is just brilliant. So they're kind of a bit of toolkit, and I do like them to potentially release or replace a couple of goblins just to give you that bench, but the bench will not last long, but it's going to give you some choices. Stat ups and skill ups. Yeah, sure. All right, so the Skaven lineman, my boy. Right, movement 7, strength 3, edge 3+, passing 4+, armor 8+. The Skaven lineman is perfection. It could do with a bit of their armor, but actually movement 7 is a very valid trade. 7 is fast, right? Other teams wish they had movement 7, and you can take 3 of them on this roster at 50k. It's an absolute bargain. Now, this is where the animosity begins. So, animosity goblin. If you are going to take your Skaven lineman and hand off the ball to a goblin, you need to roll a 2+. Now, this is interesting. It's going to hurt you every now and again. You can obviously use a team reroll on it, but it's just that extra roll that might stuff you. And, you know, we're going to talk about it here, and then we're just not going to really address it again because it's a thing you just have to come to terms with. And sometimes these players, because they're just that way inclined, it isn't going to work out. Okay, draw a line under that. So the Skaven lineman, 50k, all that's sweet. You've got 3 of them on this roster, which is wicked. Now, realistically, your Skaven linemen in the Underworld team, you kind of, they're 2 things, all right? They are linemen when you're up against a medium strength team, but they're not linemen when you're up against a higher strength team or a lower strength team. Against a lower strength team, your Skaven linemen become 3 additional blitzers. Against a high strength team, someone who's going to front up on the line, you put your Snotlings, you put your Goblins on your line, and you leave your Skaven lineman back at that point. If you're willing to front up against another strength 3 team, then actually the Skaven linemen do a pretty good job of being on the line, but the more hits you get against them, the more chance they are of dying. But that movement 7 and edge 3+ gives tons of range and a reasonable agility to bounce around, and that is with no skills. Now, this is the really fun thing here, is that because they've got devious skills, you can give them Dirty Player. Okay, you know, you can do some stuff with the Skaven lineman, and the fact that movement 7 keeps them kind of in the game. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Skaven lineman here, this is primed in this roster, I think, for random general skills. You've got block, you've got wrestle, you've got tackle, you've got strip wall, you've got kick, you've got pro, you've got stand, steady footing. There's a bunch of cool stuff you can get. So if you're Skaven lineman on this roster, get a skill, get a touchdown, get 3 SPP, you take a random general on them, and then you let that determine what kind of player you want them to be. And the reason I say that is because if you roll a Skaven lineman and you take that skill and he gets a combat skill or wrestle. Okay, you get wrestle. Maybe you want 2 heads to give him edge 2+ so he can get that wrestle to the right place. If he takes block, maybe you want to do something different and give him claws to just take a really early access to a strength to like attack, you know, an anti-targeting thing. So the fact there's 3 of them, you should be able to roll some pretty decent skills. So actually I really like that for these Skaven. You can then take your time and brew them up in the direction you want to. Remember that secondary skills here, they're 10 SPP if you have no skills. They're 12 SPP for the second time around. So a Skaven lineman taking a 3 SPP random general and getting block is then only 12 SPP away from becoming a blodger on your roster. It's optimistic, but it's definitely a chance. And you've also got that secondary of being strength too. The point is that the Skaven linemen don't need a huge amount to be awesome. And if you can spike a good skill early, you're good to go, in my opinion. So Skaven linemen, all the thumbs up. Gutter runners. They're not bad players, these guys. So movement 9, strength 2, edge 2+, armor 8+, and passing 4+, coming in at 85k. Absolute bargain. Animosity, goblins, dodge, and stab. So we kind of talked about the gutter runner already, and if you've watched any videos ever, you'll know gutter runners are fantastic. Movement 9 mixed in with edge 2+ and dodge means that they are basically able to get anywhere they want to get most of the time. And that's vanilla. So when it comes to leveling up your gutter runner, you've got agility access, you've got devious access, you've got general access, you've got mutation access. So if you want this gutter runner to become a blodger, you do it straight away. If you want him to become a little wrestle guy that you run into places, you can do that pretty quickly as well. You've got access to mutations, so actually 2-headed becomes edge 1+ when dodging. 2 hands, he's already got 2 hands. You know, extra arms gives him a 1+ pickup to, or 1+ to receive. it becomes an absolute edge bomb. 2 heads on the Gutter Runner is solid. Block is also solid. It's up to you which direction you want to take. Block is going to keep him alive, and a blodger is never bad, but 2 heads is just absolutely filthy. Into 1 tackle zone on a 2+ with a reroll, onto 2 tackle zones with a 3+ with a reroll. Your Gutter Runner just becomes nigh on unstoppable, and quite frankly, I don't need to go any further than that. I mean, stat ups are not the best for gutters because they are capped at 9 movement anyway, so you cannot get movement 10. The best you're going to get is strength 3, which is not bad, or edge 1+, which is not bad. But for 14 SPPs, because these guys have got general and mutations on a standard skill, if you want him to have edge 1, you just get 6 SPP and give him 2 heads, and that's basically edge 1 for the most part. Strength up is would be pretty tasty, but because he's got access to mutations, you can give him horns and blitz around with +1 strength if you want to do that. Also quite fun on a goblin, actually. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with the Gutter Runner, but it is one of those players where it really doesn't need anything, and anything you do to it just gets better. Okay, Skaven Thrower, movement 7, strength 3, edge 3+, passing 2+, armor 8+, a little bit on the vulnerable side here, but this is a movement 7 thrower with some wicked skills. 80k, pass and sure hands, so he's running around picking the ball up, 7 squares of movement, edge 3+, into a reroll with sure hands, and then a 2+ quick pass with a reroll means that this Skaven Thrower has got some serious range when it comes to starting off your drive or reacting. So if you want to kind of roll back and go to the other side of the pitch, this is a pretty good roster to be able to do that in, and the Skaven Thrower here having 7 squares of movement is going to give you a ton of range to do so. Now you've got some goblins, you've got some high speed pieces on this team, so I think the Thrower is actually well placed to do some shenanigans at times, but he's not going to be dinking, dunking, and throwing passes all of the time. The Skaven Thrower is going to keep the ball for a lot of the time until you see an opportunity to strike. At that point, you've got a movement 8 Blitzer, you've got a movement 6 Goblins, and you've got a movement 9 Gutter Runner. So you've got some pretty good scoring threats ready. So your thrower kind of keeps hold of the ball, and then at one point he's going to strike. Now, if you need to turbo offense it, the fact he's past 2++ is fantastic with movement 7. Deep kick, all right, fine. I go back, I get the ball, take a couple of rushes, take a 2+ throw, and the ball is where I want it to be. Maybe you're sending it to a goblin to get a throw teammate opportunity. Maybe you're just trying to just do some shenanigans using the Rat Ogre's Frenzy and a sprint sidestep Gutter Runner to take a 1-turn touchdown. The thrower is going to be reliably able to get the ball to them. And that's where it gets really interesting. So skills-wise, you can take block on him and get him up to be a kind of runner more than a thrower and just rely on that passing 2++ in a pinch. He's already got sure hands to protect him from strip ball, and a movement 7 block piece is never a bad thing, especially one that can also throw. Or you can live the dream and take some cool passing skills, make him accurate, which gives him passing 1++. One's always going to fail, but it means 6 squares on a 2+ with a reroll is phenomenally good fun. Mutation wise, do you know what? You can put block on him, use him as a second runner, take that 2 heads, and then he's dodging everywhere on a 2+, and he's throwing it on a 2+. It can be a real superstar of a ball handler when it comes to this team. Then your Gutter Runner becomes your primary catcher, your Blitzer becomes your secondary ball carrier, and this guy becomes your primary ball carrier, who, when he's in a pickle, can hand it off to one of those other 2 guys or make a quick pass to one of those 2 guys. The thrower here is not a classic thrower. He can be, but he is going to be a little bit more combative than others. You can also check some mutations on him. I mean, 2 heads, great for dodging. Extra arms gives him a 1+ with a reroll pickup. No, a 2+ with a reroll pickup with sure hands, which is pretty good too. There's a ton of cool stuff you can do to the Skaven Thrower, and it's really going to be down to which direction you want to take him. In this roster, as boring as it is, block does put you better. It gives you 1 more block piece, and because he's going to be making some successful passes, he's going to build up some SPP a little bit faster than the rest of your team. I can see game 1 thrower, quick pass, yeah, gets that, quick pass, yeah, gets that, 2 SPP for 2 completions, and then if he rolls the random, you're straight up to 6 SPP. Right, if he rolls the random MVP, straight up to 6 SPP straight away, and then block. Then you've got a second movement 7 block piece. This guy just also happens to be an excellent thrower. So Skaven are great, and they just keep getting greater. So the Skaven Blitzer, who is a phenomenally good Blitzer, is now even better. Movement 8, Strength 3, Edge 3+, Passing 4+, Armor 9+. Armor 9+ with Strength 3, perfectly resilient when it comes to a blocking piece, because this guy has block and strip ball and animosity. So Movement 8, look, it's massive. It is massive. Movement 8 is fantastic. Movement 7 was already really good, but now he is just turbo. It's a really interesting one. It's buffed Skaven a little bit, hasn't compensated for the fact that you lose 6 cool positionals and go down to 4. This roster, you've got 2 cool positionals and you stay at 2 cool positionals and you keep one of those cool positionals and they just get better, which is this guy here. So when it comes to the Blitzer, movement 8, most blitzers need movement 6. The fact he's movement 8 just means this guy can absolutely turbo. He can blitz somebody 9 squares away, 10 squares away. No, can't quite make 10 squares. Yeah, he can. So it's wicked. It's absolutely wicked. And the skill set on this guy is brilliant too. General, mutation, and strength. So everything we talked about. 2 heads, sure. Extra hands, sure, if you want him to be a scoring threat. Horns, he can now blitz at strength 4. You've got claws when you start wanting to have a piece of removal on this roster. The fact he's got strength access means you can take Mighty Blow really quickly as well. Look, Skaven Blitz is wicked. You can also even chuck on... It's an interesting one in this roster because strength access gives you break tackle, which would give this guy a 2+ to dodge. 2 heads also gives you a 2+ to dodge. So in theory, you can make him a 1+ dodger. But when it comes to the Blitzer, I don't know. I like 2 heads on everything that can take mutations because I'm a 2+ dodge into the open kind of guy. But he wants to be your removal piece a bit. So actually having Mighty Blow on him is pretty good. He can be a guard caddy, but I think where there's only one of them, it's not the best. And really, if he's got guard, there's not a huge amount of other people that are going to be following up and making the most of it. You want to put guard on something shifty and nifty, like maybe a goblin or something if you saved up. It's an interesting one. Now, the Blitzer here is prime for a skill up because absolutely out the gate, he is fantastic as he is. So you can afford to wait to 14 SPP, see if you can't fudge in a second move 9 piece, maybe a strength 4 piece, or maybe a natural edge 2+ piece. I very much like that, and if it doesn't work out, well, you can just give him dodge, and that's just filthy. All right, so big guy territory, and first up, we've got the Roger. I've switched these guys around, but that's okay. So 150k for a movement 6 big guy, strength 5, edge 4+, passing 6+, armor 9+. The Roger is a fantastic big guy. Now, he's got Animal Savagery, Frenzy, Loner 4+, Mighty Blow, yeah, and Prehensile Tail. So, Animal Savagery is an interesting one. He will always be able to do what you want him to do, but it will come at the cost of him punching one of your other guys. And this is the interesting thing about having Snotlings. Their armor is terrible, so the Rogue is going to eat him, but it doesn't feel quite so bad. Now, it's better in a roster when you could use Swarming, and that became free. But I'd much rather he was hitting a Snotling than a Skaven Line Rat. Because if this guy activates and fails, he will lash out, roll armor against a player next door to him, he'll knock him down, roll armor against them, but he'll carry on. So he cannot fail a blitz as long as there's someone there for him to take his frustration out on. That is pretty potent. Now, he's Frenzy and he's got Mighty Blow, so if you chuck in a bit of support with this guy, you can get him up to a lovely 6-die Frenzy block. A lot of the time, though, with movement 6, he's going to be able to wander around, and with that strength 5, he's going to be able to 2-die Frenzy, 2-die. Now, big guys are all notoriously unreliable. It's because he's got that Loner 4+, that actually, if you both down Skull, you can't save it. Well, 50% of the time, in theory, you can save it, but that's not how this works in Blood Bowl. So, Prehensile Tail is the other beautiful benefit here of the Roger, is that -1 to dodging away really messes up people's plans. Sometimes a 3+ dodge is okay, we'll give it a go. When it becomes 4+, that's really brutal. And it will even make elves reconsider their options when it goes from 2+ to 3+, because it starts being... It may not cause turnovers, and it may not cause injuries, but it will essentially just start adding attacks to your opponent's rerolls, and that's going to mean they drop the ball at some point and it gives you a better opportunity. Now, the Roger here with Frenzy he's able to pile on. He's able to hurt things, and he's very good for removal. Skills-wise, you can take Claw on him nice and easy. He's got strength access, so you can take Juggernaut if you're going to be blitzing with the Roger. You can take Brawler if he's going to be in the scrum. You can take Guard if you want to activate him and just use him in the scrum and give everyone else a better chance of punching things and hurting things. You can give him Break Tackle for +3 to your dodge, giving him a 1+ agility, which can really get him out into the open or into the closed. Edge 1+, you've got a couple of tackle zones there you can wander into quite handily. And in this edition, secondary skills being 10 SPP means actually the Roger, 10 SP is quite a long way away for something that's not going to be scoring a lot of touchdowns, but he's going to get a couple of casualties, and I think you're going to find yourself in the situation where casualty in one game, casualty in the second game, he gets a random MVP, and you're sitting at SPP, and you're thinking to yourself, 2 more SPP, and this guy can be my block. and I can have a block big guy with Frenzy, and it's going to be exceedingly tempting. Waiting to 14 SPP for a stat up, that's greedy. I like it. And the troll, so movement 4, strength 5, edge 5 plus, passing 5 plus, armor 10 plus, 115k is a bit of a bargain for a strength 5 chonker. Always hungry, mighty blow, loner 4 plus, projectile vomit, really stupid, regeneration, and throw teammate. So where the rat ogre is going to be a secondary blitzer, okay, the troll is going to be a big old line protecting blocker. So strength 5 with armor 10 plus and regeneration, he will take a lot of punishment, which is going to relieve a bit of pressure on your more fragile players, which is great. Now, he's still got Mighty Blow and Strength 5, so he's still able to pile on the hurt if he wants to. Doesn't have Frenzy, has much less movement, so this guy is more of a static, I'm going to punch things. But what he does do is on a roster where you can take some Snotlings and you can take a lot of good Goblins, he gives you that throw teammate opportunity, and that's the real crux of building this roster is, do I want to be able to throw teammate or do I want to be brawling? And that's the biggest choice when it comes to your two big guys. Because there's quite a sizable cost differential, you get you can kind of think about it, and it really does affect the way you want to build your roster out. Now, the troll's wicked, right? He will stand on the line and he will basically stay there. You've got projectile vomit, so if you don't want to take a block on another target, you can just try and chunder acid on them instead, which is great fun. Mutation and strength. Guard is wonderful on a troll because he's not moving. You can take stand firm. You can take grab. He's not likely to be the one you put break tackle on, but strong arm is fantastic for a throw teammate build. That means he's superb throwing on a 4+ for a quick pass and 5+ for a short pass, which is going to help the troll get some SPP and help your goblins and Snotlings land where they're supposed to be landing. Mutations wise, tentacles and a strength 5 piece is always quite fun, and the troll is going to be around long enough for you to brew up some SPP. So you kind of got the troll, who is less dynamic but gives you the throw teammate angle, or you've got the roger, who is just running around causing carnage for you and for them. All right, so we will go through this fully when we do the starting roster video, but if you want to start Underworld, here is a place to begin. We're going to take 4 goblin linemen, 3 Skaven linemen, thank you typo, 1 Skaven thrower, 1 Skaven blitzer, 1 gutter runner, and 1 rat ogre, with 3 rerolls and an apothecary. So this is where the list building gets really interesting. It says there's 12 players. There's actually 1, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 players. So ignore that. That's the start point, right? You will need a big guy for this roster. You can go to the shops, and if you can find the Underworld box, you can get that. It's going to have some goblins in, it's going to have some Snotlings in, but the spice to this roster is whether you have Snotlings. It's whether you go throw teammate or frenzy big guy blitz. But as a starting point, you can do this. But one thing I would say is wherever possible in this roster, you do want the apothecary, because you are going to want to keep your blitzer alive. You're going to want to keep your gutter runner alive. And in a lot of cases, you're going to want to keep your big guy alive, because that's a huge TV loss. They're very key. Each element of this roster is pretty flexible, but they're also pretty vulnerable. So the apothecary is quite useful. 3 rerolls is going to stand you really well. You've got a lot of dodge, a lot of integral stuff doing things well, but 3 rerolls is just going to keep you competing and help you with those stretch plays, whether you are just setting up some 3-die frenzy blitzes or taking a cheeky 1-turn touchdown throw attempt. Having rerolls in the bank is going to help you out massively. Okay, so Underworld. One of the reasons they are one of my most exciting teams in this edition is because they are so flexible. Gutter runners, throwers, blitzers, even those players have multiple different ways to brew them up, and the way you kind of want to brew them up will affect which starting roster you take. Do you want to do the troll thing? Do you want to throw teammate? In this edition, throw teammate got better because you can also pass in the same turn, which really frees you up to have some shenanigans. Or do you want to go essentially the Skaven heavy build with the rat ogre? At that point, you know, maybe you turn a goblin into a few extra Snotlings so that you can feed the rat ogre to keep him active, and just use that 2++ titchy dodge to run around and set up those supports so your roger can just make a 3-die into another 3-die. Underworld are a wicked roster. You get cool Skaven stuff, you get big guy action, and you get absolute dodgy shenanigans, all with mutations. It is probably the most fun team in Blood Bowl. Renegades is good, Snotlings are good, but this one, I think this is just the most exciting and most fun team in Blood Bowl, and I love it. Anyway, let me know what you think in the comments below, and we'll be back soon with more of the content. Thanks very much for watching. Happy blocking.